fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Waskrug, and with me, as always, is Brian Michaels. This is episode 3. You guys are still with us, and we thank you for watching. This is a very weird episode. We promised it last week that it was going to be kind of a weird episode because it was a list of movies where we were just kind of like, do we want to talk about this one? Do we not want to talk about this one? Sure. So it was one of those. It's probably the worst weekend that we've had so far of the year, except for the first week, which we decided not to do. Yeah, exactly. We were like, we're not going to start this week. It's not that there's bad movies. It's just that they're not movies that you and I really care about that much to talk about.
Yeah, it didn't feel passionate either way about most of these. It was just kind of like, okay, sure, that's something. Now that we've made you all really excited to watch this episode.
Exactly, but if you guys really enjoy us like shitting on movies like we did with Leprechaun and Paul Blart last week, I mean, you're gonna like this episode.
Oh yeah.
Because it's definitely got a lot of that in this. So we're actually going to start with our revisited movie this week. Now, this was a movie that I personally had never seen. I always wanted to. I just never got around to it, which is why Brian said, you know what, we're just going to make this revisited so you can watch it. And that movie is, was it 2006? 2003. 2003, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Directed by George Clooney. I think it was this his first directorial debut?
It was his first feature film, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it came out on January 24th, 2003, had a budget of $30 million. In its weekend opening, it had it had $6 million. But it had about 500,000 in limited release, and it started the week at number 8 behind Darkness Falls. That was not a good movie. Kangaroo Jack in its second week. It was number 1 the week prior. Chicago in its 5th week. National Security in its 2nd week. And Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers in its 6th week. Catch Me If You Can in its 5th week. And Just Married. I remember that movie. In its 3rd week. It finished its total box office at $33 million. Had $16 million domestic and $17 million international. The only thing I really knew about this movie going in was like, was this the Sam Rockwell Hitman movie? I did not know anything else about it. And then when the movie started, I was like, is this not a Hitman movie? Like, I was so confused. And then it eventually did become the Hitman movie. But yeah, coming off of just like first impressions, Sam Rockwell killed it in this movie. I thought Sam Rockwell, and at the time, I think this might have been Rockwell's first like lead performance, because I think
it was his first lead, yeah, because he had been in bit parts in Green Mile, things like that. His breakthrough role was probably Guy Fleegman in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah,
I think this might be the first one he had a lead in. Yeah,
because he was always in an ensemble cast with, like you said, Green Mile and Galaxy Quest. But I think this was his first actual lead, and honestly, for his first time as a lead, I thought he did a great job in it. It's got a really solid cast. There were certain people that popped up, which I'm like, well, of course they popped up. It's George Clooney directing this film. It makes total sense that these people would show up. Like, there's 2 cameos during the dating game that just made me laugh. It was Matt Damon.
Because neither of them says a word.
Exactly, they don't say a word. Brad Pitt and Matt Damon pop up for 2 seconds, which clearly is a nod to the Ocean's 11 crew. Then Julia Roberts, she's got parts in the movie, but honestly, outside of Rockwell, the one performance I actually really, really enjoyed was Drew Barrymore. I actually really enjoyed Drew Barrymore in this. She was just a character that was like, I would love to have met this woman in real life. Like, this character, like, she just seems super fun and delightful, and just a character that you would just want to be around outside of the obvious stuff in the movie. But yeah, Brian, go ahead and talk a little bit about Confessions.
Well, this is the one. I didn't mind doing this as a revisit one. I thought this was a good idea because, like you said, you hadn't seen it. And I had seen it, but probably not since the early 2000s. So it'd been a long time since I saw it. And beyond like the very basic plot of it, I didn't really remember much about it. Like, I didn't honestly remember how I felt about it. And rewatching it, I kind of see why, because I liked it, didn't love it. I agree. I think the performances, especially Sam Rockwell, he's Sam Rockwell, and he does a
Exactly.
great job here. And the supporting actors and everything, they're fine. The story itself, it was okay. I almost feel like I would have liked it better if it was a straightforward biography of this guy, as opposed to trying to put in his little fantastical I'm with the CIA stuff, or they should have leaned more heavily into the CIA stuff. It kind of felt like it was like two different movies, and I was like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't know the story, Sam Rockwell plays real life person Chuck Barris, and he's the guy who was behind making the dating game, the Newlywed Game, the Gong Show, all this stuff, and he had a really I guess you'd say a traumatizing childhood. You don't really find that out till the end, I guess, but and he's like the movie. Here's the thing about the movie: it just felt like it was coming at all sorts of different directions. Like at the beginning of the movie, he's like a sex deviant, and then they just kind of abandon that and just go, he's this huge big wig at NBC, which now today's standards, if he had been around then, all that stuff in the past would have blown up.
Right.
We'd be gone so fast. But and so he's creating all these game shows and stuff like that. He's becoming a big wig at was it NBC? I think it was NBC. Yes. And then all of a sudden, George Clooney's character shows up and says, "We want to make you a CIA hitman." And so he's trying to juggle both lives. And you find out, and that's kind of the thing. It's like, this is supposed to be based on a true story and stuff like that. But a lot of people are like, well, was this part, him being a CIA hitman, true or was it not? You eventually found out, if you go to Wiki and you read about Chuck Barris, you find out that it was all bullshit. Which, like Brian was saying, either keep it a straightforward true story about this character, about this guy, and what he did, or go so far into the CIA stuff that it becomes like a fantastical story in this guy's mind. But it teeters between both, that you really just don't know what tone that they're trying to tell throughout the film, because it goes very TV, then it goes hitman, and the movie just flips-flops so much. They just keep adding stuff that the story is kind of a jumbled mess. I'm actually surprised Clooney pulled off what he did out of it. I think it's more.
And I really think a lot of that is Sam Rockwell, because direction I didn't feel was anything spectacular. It wasn't anything bad. It was just kind of there, like the movie. But I thought that he's saved it, keep it teetering in the positive side for me.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those, like, is this a movie I would necessarily recommend to people? Like, oh, you got to check out Confessions of a Neighbor's Mind. No, but if you really want to see,
it's worth watching.
Yeah, it's not a horrible film by any means. It's just not a movie that I would just say go out of your way to go see this movie.
Right.
But if you want to see how Sam Rockwell really kind of became Sam Rockwell, because yes, he was great in Green Mile, he was great in Galaxy Quest, but he was just kind of like this character. He wasn't like this, oh man, this guy's going to be huge one day. But then you see him as Chuck Barris in Confessions, you go, now I see this guy. Now I see the potential that Sam Rockwell has.
I think that you're half right. I think that watching Galaxy Quest, I think you did go, that guy is good. He could be big. On the comedy side, I think that this movie was enough of a dramedy that you kind of thought, well, he could be a great dramatic actor too. And that kind of, was a preview to, Three Billboards and these other things to come. So
I also think this was the debut of his dancing almost in every movie. Because I don't remember him dancing in Green Mile. No, he was in a jail cell the entire time. And I don't remember him really dancing in Galaxy Quest. But in this movie, he does his little dance. And now you see him in everything. And everything's got to have like one little dance sequence.
Right.
My favorite dance sequence he's ever had probably was in the opening of Mr. Right, which I love Mr. Right. If no one's seen Mr. Right, it's him as a hitman, actual hitman in that one. And Anna Kendrick, and it's delightful. But he starts his whole movie, he's just doing a dance sequence, and it's great. But yeah, I mean, if you like George Clooney's direction, I mean, he's obviously done quite a few films now. It's also nice, kind of like, hey, you want to see how he started off? This is his first film. I think Julia Roberts is solid in her small role. Rutger Hauer, he pops up, and I actually really like the 2 scenes he was in, 2 or 3 scenes he was in. He just looked like he was having fun, and you rarely get to see Rutger Hauer really have fun in a lot of things outside of Buffy.
I was gonna say Buffy.
Like Buffy, he was having a ball, but yeah. So like Confessions, like I said, in terms of recommendations, if you want to see the star bright up on Sam Rockwell to show that he can lead a film, or see George Clooney's first directorial debut, then I definitely would recommend Confessions. It's just not a movie that I think is going to last or resonate in your brain long after it's over. Even now, it's been a few days since I've seen it. I'm trying to remember parts of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, what? I mean, we watched all 5 of these movies in the span of like 3 days, but it was the first one I watched, and it's the one that I remember the least of. And I still remember the movies we watched last week and the week prior. And Confessions, I'm having a hard time remembering parts of it. But and Confessions, was it on anything? I can't remember. Is it on any streaming services right now?
Oh, I've got it right here. Let me look. Confessions is currently on HBO Max.
That's right. I watched it.
I mean, you can rent it every place else, but for free if you subscribe to HBO Max, it's there, or HBO.
So not only could I remember the movie, I couldn't even remember which streaming service I watched. But Brian, any last thoughts on Confessions of a Dangerous Mind?
No, I mean, I think we kind of covered it in that, just like I was saying, I kind of forgot how I felt about it. You watched it a week ago, you've kind of forgotten about it. It's just that kind of movie. It's not going to be something that lives with you for a long time, but it is something to kind of see, like, where Sam as an actor and George as a director were kind of started their rise.
Exactly. Next movie, we're going to go to my pick, and I'm going to tell you guys right now a little behind the veil. When I was looking through the movies for this weekend, Brian's like, what do you want to pick for your pick? And I'm like, honestly, there's not a movie outside of the feature that I really want to talk about. I was like, I guess I could pick these two because I think I liked them both when I saw them back when. And it was Win a Date with Tad Hamilton, which I had watched in the last like 6 months, and I remember it was pleasant, but I didn't think there was enough to talk about in that movie. And then the other one was the one I eventually picked, which I thought when I was younger, which was 17 years ago, when it came out, that I liked it. And that is 2004's Butterfly Effect. I am so tongue-tied today. Butterfly Effect came out January 23rd, 2004. It had a budget of $13 million, had a weekend opening of $17.1 million. So good job. And it was number 1 in the box office opening weekend, and it only stayed at number 1 for the first week. It finished with $96.8 million, $57.9 million domestic, and $38.88 million international. I think it was the first, I guess, dramatic role is what we want to call it for Ashton Kutcher. You had Amy Smart in it as well. Ethan Suplee is in it, as well as what's his name from Mighty Ducks?
Eldon Henson.
Eldon Henson. I would say that's the main real cast of this movie. And yeah, I picked it because I remember when I was younger, I was like, I'm pretty sure I liked Butterfly Effect. And watching it today, I was like, wow, this movie sucks. It's not good. It's really not good. And I even told Brian, I was like, I hate my pick. And he just started laughing. So for the first time on Movie Crusaders or Weekend Crusaders, probably it's not going to be the last time, we picked something because we thought we remembered liking it. And then we ended up going, yeah, I didn't like that movie. It's super, super sad and depressing, the whole film. Like, outside of like one moment of the film, there's never really any happiness throughout this entire film. The acting is not good. It takes like 30 plus minutes to get Ashton Kutcher.
That's what hit me, is I don't remember it taking a half an hour to get to the adults. I was like, these kids going
outside of the opening, where you see him running down the hall, which you're not supposed to laugh at him, but he's literally running down going like a freaking gerbil, and it's like, okay, we're supposed to keep him serious, but you're doing a funny face running down the hall. Like, come on, bro, you're Ashton Kutcher. But it's just, yeah, it's like there are just certain scenes in this movie where you could tell that the actors just weren't probably given a whole lot of direction because they're very stagnant. Like, there's like the main character's doing something, and if you watch the background characters, they're all just kind of, it's like, you're supposed to be reacting to what's going on right now. I mean, there's literally one point in the movie where Ashton Kutcher is literally having like a seizure, and Ethan or Eldon Henson's character is just kind of like,
he's catatonic through half the movie.
I'm like, you're just super chill. That your boys literally have a seizure in front of you. You're just like, good. It's like, what the hell? But it's not good. And then I made the horrible decision to watch the director's cut without realizing because I remember the end. And I was like, I was watching it, and all of a sudden they went a whole another route with. I'm like, what the hell am I watching? Because the director's cut is the most ridiculous ending I have ever seen. And I'm just sitting here and I'm texting Brian. I'm like, what? This is not how the movie ends. Like, I don't remember this. And then I looked at him, I'm like, I accidentally watched the director's cut, and it's so ridiculously stupid. And I'm telling you guys right now, and I know you're probably going to go, oh, I got to see this ending. Don't. Just read it. Take 2 seconds, go on Wiki, read the director's cut of this ending, because it is so stupid. Oh my God, it's so dumb. Because I remember the original ending because was the song "Hold On" was the end song for the movie. I actually really liked that song back in 2004. Actually, I remember like purchasing it and because I liked the way it played, and I was like waiting for that part to come, and it never came. And I said we got this weird, messed up ending, and it's just. Yeah, this movie's not good. Brian, take it away. Butterfly Effect.
Well, first of all, I really think that that ending, having watched the director's cut, is what tipped you into like apparently really hating this movie. Because I rewatched it. I rewatched it, and I will admit it is not as good as I remember it being. I did not hate this movie though. I still enjoyed it, but I was watching it going, I thought I liked it more than this time. But that ending, like, because I watched the regular version, because I'm not stupid, and. But then I didn't remember what the alternate ending was, so I looked up what it was. I'm like, oh, he watched that, because it's just so stupid. It's
so batshit crazy.
But I mean, the movie itself. I mean, like I said, it took like half an hour to get to the adult switch. I don't remember taking that long to do it, and I didn't know until just now. When I looked it up that Logan Lerman was his character at age 7. I didn't even recognize him. Having just watched the movie this morning, I didn't recognize him.
Also, we forgot to mention it. In Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Michael Cera plays young Sam Rockwell. He's only on the screen for like 30 seconds, but unrecognizable. Like as soon as you close up on
he's totally recognizable, but he's super young. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's Michael Cera. Like that was before Arrested Development, before any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I thought Arrested Development was
at the same time. But I mean, I liked the movie. I do think it did not impress me as much as when I first saw it, and I kind of thought, oh, wow, this is actually pretty good, thriller, and Ashton Kutcher can actually act, and I don't know why I thought that at the time. I mean, Ashton I have no problem with in the right roles, and even here, he's okay for it.
I will say the diner scene with Amy Smart, I actually thought that was a really good, well-acted scene for him. The rest of the movie, no.
I think it's more, I like the concepts of it. It's the idea of it kind of falls in the same thing where I'm a big fan of like those time loop movies where you think people change things and everything changes the whole day, the chain of events, and so the Butterfly Effect kind of the same thing, so I like the idea of it. I think there are good scenes to it, but yeah, I mean the acting is kind of just very blah. I mean, you have people like Eric Stoltz, isn't there, right? And now he's not a superstar actor or anything, so it's not like this movie's beneath him or anything. But it's like I'm not sure why he was in this movie. He just played this creepy ass character, and it's just like, why would you of the few movies that you do, why would you do this one? I don't know.
I mean, honestly, it's just because the movie's just so damn depressing. There are movies that are depressing that are actually, in my opinion, fantastic films, like 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, or Manchester by the Sea. But then there are some that's just so damn depressing, and it's just like, I don't enjoy this. Like, not to mention, the first 30 minutes, the kids are like the bullies from Derry in it. Like, they go to such, one of them. I'm not going to say all of them. One kid is just like...
kind of playing along, though. But yeah, the one mainly, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, what is wrong with this child? It's like, good God.
And I just want to say that, okay, I'm going to go into, I can't say what I want to say about this movie without going spoiler territory. So give me 1 minute. If you don't want to hear about it, skip this. So basically, the message of this movie, the summation of this movie is that it's the opposite of It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life, he finds out, oh, if I had died, if I didn't exist, everyone's life in town would be horrible and these things would be bad. Basically, in this movie, he finds out, hey, if I just didn't get in these people's lives, they would all have happy, great lives. Basically, I'm the reason that everyone's lives are screwed up. And so if I remove myself from the equation, then this person's still alive, this person's happy, this person doesn't go to jail, this person's not. And it's like, so our message is that the main character should never have been born. I don't know.
And that's the crappy thing about it. It's like the main character of Ashton Kutcher's character. He's not a bad guy. He's not. He's generally a good guy throughout most of the movie. Does he make some stupid decisions as a kid? Obviously, but we all did. But from beginning to end, he, for the most part, is a good character, like a good guy character. Yeah. He's not a horrible person, unlike that one character. But you're basically telling me that, yes, in the terms of It's a Wonderful Life, where he tells the angel, not that there's an angel in this movie, but it probably would have made this movie a whole lot more logical, is if I was dead or if I never met these people would have better lives. And the angel goes, yeah. It's like, you literally ruined these people's lives. Like, you are the catalyst that makes everyone's lives miserable. And in the original,
and it turns out that his apparently insane and criminal dad was correct, and that he should have just killed him.
Exactly. Which it's like I said, it's so depressing because it's like there's no light, there's no brightness of this. Like, oh no, Ashton Kutcher's character, who I'm already blanking on what his name was in the movie. It's like, no, you're a good guy. Evan, yeah. Like, you're a good guy, it's just wrong things happen. But it's like, no, because you're a good guy, she stuck around, and because she stuck around, all this shit happened. So literally in like the original cut, it's like, okay, I just need to be a dick and make these people not like me, and they'll live normal lives. Whereas in the director's cut, it does go full Wonderful Life, where I'll just kill myself, and everyone's lives will be perfect. It's what kind of message is that? What kind of message? That's a horrible message for a movie. And that's, like I said, that was my problem. It wasn't the ending of the director's cut or even the original cut. It's just there's no goodness in the movie except for that one scene where that one moment where he does the first fix. There's some happiness there. Yeah. There's like 5-10 minutes of the movie where it's actually genuinely happy, and the whole rest is just dour and just soul crushing.
And it's not even like he learns his lesson. Like I talk about these time loop movies where he changes one thing. Okay, this worked, so that was a good change. Yeah. And now I need to change that thing. No, the next time he goes back into a different part of his life and doesn't try to fix that same thing. He just fixes this instead. Okay, well that can stay bad because now I got to work on this instead. It's like, what?
Well, it's like you got to the point where it's like, can he only go back to this one moment once? And that's why he's not going back to redo these certain things. And it's like, no, because he does go back eventually and then fucks everything up even worse. And it's like, just go back further. Like, you can fix it.
Yeah.
Like, you can. You're just choosing not to.
And again, I didn't hate this movie. I would still give it a slightly positive rating. But it's one of those that just, I thought I enjoyed it more than I did upon revisiting.
This movie had a positive rating, and then it immediately went super negative for me.
Well, I think your director's cut definitely weighed it down.
I don't think it's that. I think the director's cut was just like the utter ridiculousness of this movie. But like I said, before the director's cut, like I said, it was even during the I will call the handicap moment without going too spoilery, where I was just like, I hate this movie. This movie just is depressing as shit, and like it's making me depressed watching this, and not in a good way. Like, you watch, like I said, like 3 Billboards or Manchester by the Sea. It's like you're depressed, but you can tell like this is incredibly well acted. It's got a great story. It's got stuff, and there's other great depressing films as well. I'm just using those two because the first two pop in my head. This movie's not good. It's not acted well. The direction is horrible. It's like very 2004 gloom and doom. And there's no bright points. And like you said with the Wonderful Life example, you're right. At the end of the story, him not being around makes the world a better place, which is such a fucked up message to tell people. Because especially in this day and age, you're basically telling them, yeah, you're right. Maybe you are the problem. Like, maybe if you did remove, like, that's such a horrible message to tell people. Even back then in 2004, it's worse now. But still, it's like, I don't watch Butterfly Effect if you have not seen it. Like, I'm sorry, we got 2 stinkers in this week's episode.
The only thing I will give you credit for is that if this movie got made today, there's no way they would have made it R-rated. It'd be one of those PG-13, just to bring in the teens for opening weekend kind of thing.
Here's the thing: there's 2 sequels to this. I've never seen them.
Neither went to theaters, though.
No, they're both straight to video.
Yeah.
But I
And
mean,
these directors never directed anything again either. Well, actually, one just did last year for like some straight-to-video thing, but yeah, they never
yeah,
made anything else.
it's so bad. But honestly, in terms of budget, it made a shitload of money back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, 9 times its budget. Good for you, but bad movie. Anyway, moving on to the next film. It's Brian's pick.
Let's talk about something better. I still liked mine.
And here's the thing with your pick. I remember the first time I watched it because I had to watch it because I was playing you in movie trivia, and you made me watch this movie, and I watched it right after the other version, which we'll talk about, and I didn't like it as much. But I actually watched it today, and I was like, you know what? But I don't watch it immediately right after the other movie. I actually enjoyed this, and that is 1997's Fierce Creatures. Fierce Creatures came out January 24th, 1997, had a budget of $25 million. Seems a lot for that movie. Had a weekend opening of $3.75 million, so not a really good weekend. And it finished 8th behind Jerry Maguire in its 7th week. Jeez. In Love and War, in its 6th week. I don't even know what that movie is.
Sandra Bullock and Chris O'Donnell.
Oh, God. Okay. That was in its 6th week. Beverly Hills Ninja. Yeah. In its 2nd week. I almost talked about that movie. I really did. Metro in its 2nd week. Evita in its 5th week. Scream in its 6th week. And The Relic in its 3rd week. And Fierce Creatures finished with a budget of $9.38 million. It did not go international, so it definitely did not make its money back. But most people will know Fierce Creatures. It's the same core 4 from A Fish Called Wanda, which last year, like I said, playing you in a movie trivia match, I had not seen either one of these films, and you made me watch them in terms of studying. And I loved A Fish Called Wanda. I thought it was fantastic. I thought Kevin Kline, which we brought up Kevin Kline in our first episode, was amazing. And A Fish Called Wanda, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Cleese, Michael Palin, or is it Palin? Palin. I loved those guys in that. And Fierce Creatures, they're a little more over the top in this, especially Palin and Kline.
You know what?
But yeah, if you watch this right, go ahead. It's your movie. Go ahead.
Well, I actually kind of disagree, but just briefly, Fierce Creatures, yeah, it's basically they didn't want to make a sequel to Fish Called Wanda, which I give them all the credit in the world for not doing that because they very well could have, because it was successful both critically and actually made some money. But so what they did is they got the same core 4 actors, and I've heard it referred to as like a spiritual sequel. Only in that it's the same actors and they're kind of the very basics of it, kind of the same types of characters, but they're different characters. But it's essentially, if you haven't seen it, basically a corporation, this big corporation, buys out a zoo, and what things in order, because they want the zoo to be profitable, so they want to get away from caring about animals, all this kind of thing. Basically, it's all about profit. So they're putting ads on the animals. They're they say they only want to have the fierce creatures, which is where the title comes from. Only the fierce ones are there. So they will stage things where people are getting mauled by animals, or they'll pretend that these super cute animals are actually deadly, things like that. And anyway, it's all just zaniness ensues, misunderstandings kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think that Michael Palin and Kevin Kline were any more over the top than they were in the other movie, because they're quite over the top in A Fish Called Wanda. Kevin Kline here does get to play 2 roles.
Yeah.
He plays the father who owns this corporation, and the son who basically wants to get a piece of this corporation, but he also is, his father never respects him, kind of thing. I think on its own, it's actually a very funny movie. I think it gets overshadowed by A Fish Called Wanda because it does not live up to A Fish Called Wanda standards.
No.
But if you watch this movie just on its own, it's actually a very funny movie, and I think it's
which is exactly what I said. When I watched it last year, I watched Fish Called Wanda, and then I immediately put in Fierce Creatures. I was like, oh, I really, really like that. Let's watch this. And I didn't hate it. It was just like, oh, well, this just doesn't compare to A Fish Called Wanda. But then I watched it today just on its own, like you said, and I enjoyed it. It was a solid comedy about these characters. The reason why I say over the top is just because Kevin Kline's character, not the father, but the son part, which was Vince, he's just so whiny. Just so like, where kind of thing. It's like, oh my God, Kline, like, I love you, dude, but God, you're annoying in this. And Palin's character is just ungodly annoying through this entire film. Like, it's just hard to watch Palin. Anytime he talks, I'm just like, shut up.
Well, you're also not a you're not a Monty Python fan.
No, I'm not. I'm not a Monty Python.
Michael Palin has kind of always played that kind of character, like he does in here and like he does in Fish Called Wanda, and so I have no problem with that. Kevin Kline, I think that I know his character here. I mean, his character in Fish Called Wanda is not supposed to be likable, but you really like him. He's entertaining. I think he did a great job here in both roles. Obviously this one wasn't going to be an Oscar-nominated role like that one was.
Yeah.
But I really like Kevin Kline in this. This is kind of, it's really on the tail end of Kevin Kline when he used to do like these comedies, really fun movies before he kind of switched roles to just like doing dramas or disappearing completely. So I kind of missed the Kevin Kline of comedy. That's, I guess, maybe one of the reasons I have a fondness for this movie. But I just think it's actually very well done. And I think one of the reasons I want to talk about it is because I think it's very underrated. Most people I know haven't even seen this movie. And it's worth checking out. It really is.
Honestly, and it's like 1997. I had never heard of this film until you made me watch it. And I like Michael Cleese. I liked John Cleese's character in this. Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, is great in it. And I actually like the supporting cast of the zookeepers around him. Like, I enjoyed everyone there. The animals, or they probably weren't all real animals in the movie, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, I enjoyed the zoo atmosphere, and that's what we were telling with Kevin Kline's character. I mean, for the father, I could have done without the burp fart jokes. Like, that was just like, why?
When he was playing the father, so slapsticky. I guess that was to try and make it more of a different character from the son, but it was a little.
Yeah, but it didn't. That part didn't work for me. But like I said, John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, the whole zoo, everything zoo-like, I loved. It was the B plot storyline with Kevin Kline playing the father, and just that aspect of the story that just didn't really work for me. Like I said, not a knock on Kevin Kline, because even that stuff that I didn't like about Kevin Kline, at least for the father part, that was sound effects. That was nothing really Kevin Kline. That was sound effects thrown in, kind of like I said with Cuffs 2 episodes ago. It's like they threw in these wacky sound effects that were not needed, and it ruined the moment. And that's kind of what was going on with Fierce Creatures. But in terms of just a simple, basic comedy with 4 charismatic actors that we've seen in a movie that we loved previously with A Fish Called Wanda, it's a solid film. It's not gonna match the level of A Fish Called Wanda, which I think was kind of what did it in the end, and why it was considered a failure, is because everyone just put it. It's the same thing with like
everyone was immediately going to compare them instead of just
it's the same thing with Super Troopers and Club Dread. Everyone loved Super Troopers, and then Club Dread came out, and everyone was expecting Club Dread. Everyone was expecting basically Super Troopers with Club Dread, which we got, but it was a different kind of movie, and they were trying not to make basically a remake. And I actually really, really like Club Dread, but a lot of people hated it because it just wasn't Super Troopers. And I think that's the problem with Fierce Creatures, is that everyone was expecting A Fish Called Wanda 2, which they even have a Fish Called Wanda joke in the movie, which was funny. But for anyone who has never seen A Fish Called Wanda, that joke just like, what? That joke makes no sense. But yeah, if you like John Cleese, if you like Jamie Lee Curtis, if you like Kevin Kline or Michael Palin, if you guys haven't seen A Fish Called or Fierce Creatures, if you haven't seen A Fish Called Wanda, definitely check that out.
Definitely check it out.
But Fierce Creatures, like you said, it's a solid comedy away from Fish Called Wanda with these same 4 actors, and it's enjoyable. I enjoy it.
It's one definitely more people should see. John Cleese obviously kind of has that Monty Python-esque humor to a lot of it, but it also was co-written. It was co-written with John Cleese and William Goldman, who did Princess Bride, and you can kind of see a lot of the same kind of comedy in there as well. And
the whole inside joke, I'm not going to say what it is, but the whole inside joke with John Cleese's character in this movie, loved it every time. With him and Jamie Lee Curtis, like the inside joke of the movie, and it's a great inside joke, and they find beautiful ways to just keep building it the whole way through. And I loved it. But yeah, if you guys have not checked Fierce Creatures, I don't think it's on any streaming services.
Not for free, no.
You basically just have to rent it. But I definitely think it's at least a $3 worth rental. It's definitely something that if you watch this for $3, you're not going to be like, that was a waste of money at the end of it. Is it something that I would say spend like a $10 movie ticket for? No. But a $3 rental, it's definitely worth it. Now to our stinker. And Brian teased it last week. That what did you say, Brian, about this movie last week?
I don't even remember what I said about this movie last week.
This movie had no reason to be as bad as it could have, as it was, because the cast is so stellar. that there was no reason for it to be as bad as it is, and that is 2015's Mordecai. Yikes. Mordecai came out January 23rd, 2015, had a budget of $60 million.
60, that's 60, folks.
Yeah, $60 million. Had a weekend opening of $4.2 million. Finished 9th in the top 10 behind American Sniper in its 5th week. The Boy Next Door, it's also opening week. Paddington in its second week. The Wedding Ringer in its second week. Taken 3 in its 3rd week. The Imitation Game in its 9th week. Strange Magic. No, I don't know what that is. And
the animated film was not good.
Gotcha. And Selma in its 5th week. It finished with a box office of $47.27 million, $7.69 million domestically, which means it only made like $3 million more after that first weekend.
Yeah, most of it came from
but yeah, and the big thing, $39.57 million international. So made pretty much all of its money overseas. Yeah.
We kind of talked about how it almost feels like this movie was made with more of the
Exactly.
England in mind.
When Brian and I were watching this, first off, we talked a lot through this, but that was the main thing, is that it didn't feel like it was made for the U.S. It felt like it was 100% made for overseas, for British people, stuff like that. And that's not a knock on it per that. It's just that there was like how Brian said, there's a lot of dialogue in the movie that was like, do you have any idea what the hell they're saying or what they're talking about? And we didn't. And we're like, well, maybe British people know that dialogue better. But let's get the big issue out of the way. The fucking mustache.
The fucking mustache. Which, before you even talk about what you feel about the mustache, they clearly thought this was the most hilarious thing in the world. Because not only is it talked about multiple times in the movie, but all the posters was came out had all the different characters with the mustache on it.
That was the trademark of this movie. And this joke, it doesn't work. It didn't work the first time they bring it up in the movie. It doesn't work the 50th time it is brought up in the movie. The cast, you got Johnny Depp, you got Paul Bettany, you got Gwyneth Paltrow, you got Olivia Munn. God, there's so many people in this movie.
Jeff Goldblum, ever so briefly.
Ewan McGregor. There's this cast. There's no reason for this cast to bomb this movie the way it bombed. And I'm not necessarily blaming the cast outside of Johnny Depp. And I came up with the perfect example while we were watching this movie where Brian's like, this is it. Brian says this is the first film outside of the Pirates of the Caribbean film where he was not playing Jack Sparrow, that they were just like, let's just let Johnny Depp do what he wants to do. And I go, that's exactly how Doolittle is with Robert Downey Jr. This is his first movie outside of being Iron Man. Not that they didn't do movies in between, but they just let him do whatever the hell he wanted to do, and thus we got Doolittle. And this is what that is for Johnny Depp as Mordecai. He's basically playing Jack Sparrow as a rich no, he's not rich. That's the whole point of the story, is that he's not rich. But like an art collector with a horse mustache.
Yeah.
But he's got the eccentricities of Jack Sparrow, just not funny. He's a wimpy guy. And I think you said that it just felt like a ripoff of Pink Panther.
Very often it felt like a ripoff of like the bad Pink Panther movies. I think there's a couple things I like when you talk about the first character outside Jack Sparrow. Now he for a stretch there, he was doing a character in every movie. When he did Willy Wonka, he did a weird eccentric character. He took a weird take on that. When he did, I'm trying to think, I'm just blanking out of kind of that same time period.
He had Rango, he had Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows. Every movie kind of had that weird character. But this is the one where I feel like that he was left unchecked, where he didn't have, Tim Burton or somebody kind of trying to direct him. There's like, if Johnny wants to do, just let him do whatever he wants to do. And it very much was kind of, he was in Jack Sparrow mode, where he's just like, he'd do all these jokes, but most of them just weren't all that funny. Or maybe it's just kind of like the shtick had kind of, it works for Jack Sparrow, but now we're like, okay, can you give us something new and different? Because now the mustache joke, I actually thought was funny the first time they mentioned it. I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny, whatever. Even just in the one scene, though, they kind of dragged out the joke. But then when it kept coming back, and clearly this was something they wanted to focus on, you're like, okay, this is just kind of example of what's wrong with the movie, is that they think things are way funnier than they are. But And again, this is not this is one it's one of those stinkers where this is not the worst movie ever made, but it's
No.
just it had no right to be as bad as it was because of the casting. Paul Bettany, especially, I think does an
Yeah,
amazing
can
job.
we
I
all
love his character in
agree?
this movie and the things his
We all
character does.
agree that this movie should have been about Jock, because Jock is great. Paul Bettany is great in this movie. Gwyneth Paltrow, great in this movie. Ewan McGregor, great. And that's what we were saying as we were watching the movie. It was like, if you take Johnny Depp's Mordecai out of this movie, I don't hate the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple characters that are bad, but they're goons. They're on screen for a minute at a time.
Or even if Johnny Depp was still in this character, but played it a little bit more, and not straight, but didn't play it as wacky. Yeah. I think this movie is 50% better right there.
Yeah, because, I mean, like I said, Paul Bettany's character is just a character you are fixated on. Anytime he's on screen, he's a character that he's always one of those characters, too, that's like if he's in the background, you're watching what he's doing, because his character is the character that literally is the one that you focus on, whereas Johnny Depp's just kind of running around going, I don't like it, and just running around like, aimlessly the whole time. It's like, yeah, we're right, we don't like it. We don't like this movie. And Olivia Munn, she's not used very much at all. Jeff Goldblum's got like a scene in the movie, completely underutilized. And it's just also goes on way, way, way too long. Like, it got to the point where Brian and I both, I think, with like 20
there
minutes.
There was a point in the movie where we're like, okay, this is the ending. And then it goes on for like another, 20, 30 minutes after that. And both of us are just like, we don't even care where it goes from here. We just want it to end.
Like, we both at one point, literally at the same moment, we're like, we don't even care about the movie, and it's still got like
a whole plot about this art theft and where the real painting is, and we're like, oh, are we still on that? We don't care.
Because they literally have like a third act finale, and it also it had a weird cut, like it's like big explosion, cut, police station. We're like, and you and I both went, what? And then it's like, oh, you thought that was the end? No, here's another 30 minutes. And it's just like, oh my God. It's just, it's one of those movies where it's just the potential of it was there with the cast and all this. It could have worked. It could have been another great little franchise, like how Daniel Craig has turned Knives Out into a franchise now. It could have been a franchise.
It could have been that if you had just dialed everything down, if it wasn't over the top, especially Johnny Depp, kind of rein him in a little bit and tell him, you're not just doing Jack Sparrow. You need to kind of do something different here. Yeah, it could have been so much better.
And you described it as well as like this is like watching Mike Myers going one character too far.
One character too far, because Mike Myers, I mean, he does Wayne's World. Obviously, people love Austin Powers. I'm not as big a fan, but I get it. And So I Married an Axe Murderer is my favorite of his. He does several characters in that. But by the time he tried to do Love Guru, it's kind of like he's like, I'm just gonna make up a new character, and the studio's like, okay, here, have some money because you made Austin Powers a hit, and it's like you went one character too far.
Yeah, and as we were watching, we were just like, there's no likable quantities to this Mordecai character. We like everyone around him. We don't know why they all put up with him, because there's no redeeming qualities to this character other than it's Johnny Depp, and yeah, it's not good. It's on. I think it was Hulu.
It's on Hulu. If your library participates, it's Hoopla. You can also watch it free with ads on the Roku channel and on Tubi TV, Tubi TV. Yeah. And then really, I jotted down one line that represented this movie perfectly. Gwyneth Paltrow's character at one point says, "Please don't be tiresome." And I turned to Sean and said, "That's the title of her review right there," because it is.
And I think I literally went too late. Like there, and that's not the only line in the movie where they say something like that. We're like, it's literally talking to the audience at this point. Yeah. And that's Mordecai in a nutshell. This is not a good movie. It's not like Brian said, it's not the worst movie out there. But this movie is it's a chore.
I would tell you watch it for Paul Bettany. I would tell you watch it for Gwyneth Paltrow looking maybe the best she's ever looked.
Oh, she looked gorgeous in this movie.
Jeff Goldblum completely underused, so I won't say watch for him though. So, but if you're going into it thinking great cast, it's got to be good.
Like I said, Ewan McGregor, he's great in his moments, but he's not used enough in it.
Ewan McGregor seemed like I like Ewan McGregor. This role could have been anybody, wouldn't have changed it.
Yeah, they could have had anyone else do it because it underutilized his talents. Now, if the movie had been based around him, like he was the main character, and he uses Mordecai to kind of do things, but it's still based on him, also would have just made the movie so much better. Or Jock, and then Mordecai was kind of like his sidekick. would have been 1,000 times better. But it's just, yeah, we don't recommend seeing Mordecai. But like I said, if you want to see Paul Bettany have a great performance, I know WandaVision just came out, so a lot of Bettany's really, really high on a lot of people's things. He's hilarious in this, and he plays a badass in the movie. Or if you want to see a gorgeous Gwyneth Paltrow in this film, then check out Mordecai, but check it out at your own warning. Like, we warned you. We warned you. Going to...
I just note something that kind of sums this movie up. I just looked at the cast list and realized that even Paul Bettany's character's name is Jock, but his full name is Jock Strap. Oh my god.
They never said that in the movie.
Moving on.
Is there a jockstrap joke in that entire film? I
don't remember it because I just noticed this now looking at the cast character list. So
I don't think there's a single jockstrap joke. So once again, that's a joke that's, I guess, was supposed to probably be in the movie, and they figured it's not funny, and they pulled it out.
That's where they draw the line. Okay.
Yeah, you could have done 50% of that to the film. Anyway, we got through our two stinkers. Now we're gonna go to our feature film, which I think for the first 2 weeks was our opening. We're gonna leave it to last. I remember seeing this movie when I worked at the movie theaters. I think I saw parts of this movie probably like 50 times while working at the movie theater because we always just go in at points. And I always saw like three main scenes. I always saw must have seen like 50 plus times, but I only ever seen the movie in its conclusion, I think 2 or 3 times. But it is an Oscar winner, big Oscar winner. I won a lot of awards. And that is 2003's Chicago. Chicago came out January 24th, 2003, had a budget of $45 million. Now, the weekend opening, this is
kind of a weird one because this is the one which they technically call its wide release, but it kind of got wider and wider and wider for several weeks. So this was still kind of a mid-range release.
Out for about 5 weeks prior to this, but it was like under 600 views or 600 screens. Then this week it opened to 600, and then for another week of 600, and then after that it went up to over 1,000. But this was also the highest weekend ranking it got for its weekend box office. So we chose it for this week because this was its biggest opening weekend. So its opening weekend it had 8.4 million, had 32.1 million prior in limited release, and it was number 3 behind Darkness Falls and Kangaroo Jack, which was also the same with was it Butterfly Effect? I think.
It was behind Darkness Falls and Kangaroo Jack. Oh my god!
Well, yeah, I remember it had been out first, but it was also 3 the week prior or the week after next as well. But yeah, it was behind those 2. But it finished with I think the highest box office total so far on our show with 306.77 million, had 170.68 million domestic and 136 international. It won Best Picture. Catherine Zeta-Jones won for Best Supporting. I think it won was it 5 or 6 Oscars total. It also got nominated for 5 or 6 more. I've always liked Chicago. I know there are certain people out there who think it's a horrible musical. I remember for the first time I saw this movie, I was not a big musical person back then, and I'm just kind of okay with it now. But this was one of the musicals outside of Sweeney Todd and Hairspray where I was like, I actually enjoy Chicago. And watching it this past week, I liked it just as much as I liked it back then. I think Catherine Zeta-Jones is fantastic in this. I think Renee Zellweger is great. I remember back when I saw it back in 2003, I wasn't a big fan of Richard Gere's performance, but this time around, I actually really enjoyed Richard Gere's performance. And John C. Reilly in a serious performance. Now, yes, he's got comedic moments in it, but honestly, you know what hooked me in this movie? Because when it first came out in theaters, I wasn't going to watch it. And like I said, working as an usher, I would have to go in and clean and check the theater at certain moments. The moment that hooked me on this movie made me go, I need to see this, was John C. Reilly's performance of Mr. Cellophane. That song is still in my music playlist when I listen to music. I love that performance of him in this film. And that is what hooked me, was walking into the theater and listening to John C. Reilly sing Mr. Cellophane. Everyone knows Cell Block Tango. That's a fantastic number. But yeah, I really, really like Chicago. I know there are certain people who don't, but I actually really enjoy this film. What do you think, Brian?
Chicago's, well, I'm a big fan of musicals usually. Chicago, I think, was one that really took advantage of the film medium because it plays the musical numbers like you're watching a stage show. So it's very much like the theater experience watching on stage, but at the same time, the movie itself is more cinematic and has things that are, they kind of treat the musical numbers almost like a fantasy world, like a dream sequence kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's oftentimes within a song, like the one that jumps to mind is the one where they're in a press conference and Richard Gere is using her like a ventriloquist dummy.
I'm gonna bring it up later because I was waiting. Next time I was gonna talk about that number specifically. Keep going.
Yeah, but there's scenes like that where you can they kind of juxtapose the scenes of like with the real press conference going on and like the more fantastical version of it with the ventriloquist dummy. And I thought that kind of stuff was done very well. Now the movie as a whole, I do enjoy it actually quite a bit. It's not, I don't consider like one of my favorites of all time or anything like that. But I really like the way it was done. I think I like the individual songs more than the movie as a whole. Like individual numbers I really like, but there's a couple of them that I think kind of drag. But yeah, I thought the acting, I thought Catherine Zeta-Jones did a phenomenal job. Renee Zellweger, who I usually don't like very much. I don't know why. There's certain movies I like her in, but I think this is one of them. I think she did a very good job.
Yeah.
And like I said, that I was most impressed by the direction of this, which is Rob Marshall, who's essentially done almost nothing musicals except for Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. He did Mary Poppins Returns. He did the movie 9, Into the Woods. He's doing the live action version of Little Mermaid. It's coming on the way. So, I mean, this is a guy, he knows how to do musicals. And like I said, I like the way that they did this one here. So it worked for me.
Yeah, like I said, and like you said, I liked the fantasticalness of the songs where it's like some of these songs actually went like 5-6 minutes long because they interweaved the songs in with the real life. Mm-hmm. Like it would, verse of the song, real life, verse of the song, real life. So it stretched the songs out. On some of them, yes, like Queen Latifah's song, that one felt like it went a little too long. I wasn't really a big fan of that one, but it's like the Roxy Hart song or the Razzle Dazzle or Tap Dance. I thought the Tap Dance was done incredibly well.
Yeah.
But yes, the one song that I was gonna bring up as you brought up, which was they both reach for the gun, I think is what it's called, where it's the press conference and literally the fantasticalness performance of it is Richard Gere is treating Renee Zellweger's character like a puppet, and the whole press is a bunch of puppets, and he's playing his show, and the choreography of that performance is flipping amazing. Like I was just in awe of just how fantastic of a job Rob Marshall did directing that, and how everything just worked incredibly well. I could have done without what was the reporter's name? Sunshine, but the actress.
Oh, Christine Baranski?
Yeah, how she was floating around near the end of it. I could have done without that part, but once again, they're all on strings, and he's playing them all because he's the puppet master. And like I said, that song, like I don't remember the song itself being something I really like, but just the performance of it. And like I said, Cellophane, Mr. Cellophane with John C. Reilly. And it's one of those things where it's like you never really know, especially at the end, the final number. We don't know if that's just something that's in their minds or if that's real because of obviously the people in the audience. But you know what? That's Chicago. And in a nutshell, it's just like the world of Chicago itself is kind of just craziness. And you never know what's going to happen. I mean, like Lucy Liu's got a real small part in it. And it's all about the latest headline. And like I said, Catherine Zeta-Jones, her opening number, all that jazz. Great way to start off the show. Performances, like I said, are great. Like I remember when I was younger, I didn't really care for Richard Gere, but and I'm not a big Richard Gere fan personally, but I actually really enjoy his character.
He's somebody who, when this movie was coming out, I didn't know a whole lot about Chicago, the musical, before I saw the movie version of it. And but when I saw it, I was actually intrigued by it. But I saw him, and I'm like, Richard Gere doesn't do much for me, especially. I mean, I've seen movies I've liked him in, but for the most part, I was like, I don't care about Richard Gere. But until I saw the movie, I'm like, I think he fit the role very well.
It was one of those two where it's just like you're watching, you're like, I don't remember him having a good voice the first time I watched this, but then he was going into it. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I think me being older can appreciate his performance a lot more. Obviously, at the time I was a teenager, I didn't like his role at all. But like now as an adult, I'm like, oh. Okay, Richard Gere's actually doing a really good job in this movie. And like I said, I'm like you, Renee Zellweger, with
very
her. Exactly. But I really, really enjoy her character on this. And there's certain like comical moments, like when she's losing the light, and so she just fakes the pregnancy, and Catherine Zeta-Jones goes, shit. I was like, Perfect. Perfect little cat and mouse games that they're playing in it. And honestly, for 2 hours, I felt like it just streamed by. Like, I remember it was near the end. I was just like, damn, we're at the end already? Like, it just moves. It keeps going.
It does, because I think a lot of musicals, especially if you look into older musicals, they tend to be very long and they feel very long.
Yes,
but that's because a lot of the songs are very kind of slow, ballady kind of things. This one, most of the music is very up-tempo, and it does do a slower song. It's something like Mr. Cellophane, where the performance is so good, you don't feel like it's, unnecessary or slow or anything.
No, and it speaks so much to John C. Reilly's character at the time, too. And that's the other thing, too, is like you said, with the older films, they'll do a whole song and dance number, and it stops the plot, it stops the movie to a halt. And then
this one flows, everything feels like it belongs.
Because they interwove the song in with the plot, so it's just seamless. And it goes right through from beginning to end, and you're in and you're out. It's the quickest 2 hours, to me, anyway. Whereas like something like a West Side Story, which I know you love. I'm not a personal fan of it, but it just
West Side Story I love, but that is a perfect example of something I think feels as long as it is.
Yeah, or Sound of Music, which I actually liked Sound of Music, but yes, like some of the numbers, it's taking forever. But yeah, Chicago, real quick. I think most people out there, if you're watching this, you probably have seen Chicago. You're probably mad that we focused on Chicago and probably didn't make it a stinker, because there's some people out there I know who hate Chicago. Andrew James Barr. But no, Brian and I both like Chicago. It's not the best musical. We both agree with that. But it's at the time, I think it was at the right time it came out to really hit the mark. I mean, it won Best Picture. Now, if you look at the Best Picture,
whether I deserve Best Picture, I don't know.
No, I mean, should it have won over Two Towers? No.
Two Towers. What was that? I think Gangs of New York was the same year.
It was Gangs of New York. I had looked it up previously.
Yeah. I know it was nominated for like 13 Oscars. It won like 6 of them.
Yeah, it like I said, I have it here. I'm just pulling it back up here. Real quick. Let's see. So it won Best Picture, Best Actress, or Best Actress Supporting the Role for Catherine Zeta-Jones, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Sound. Nominated for Best Actress for Zellweger, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for John C. Reilly. It's a shame he didn't win. Supporting Role for Queen Latifah. I don't think she deserved it in that movie. Rob Marshall for Director, Best Writing for Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Song, which the song that got nominated wasn't even in the movie. It was in the credits.
Well, that's because that's the only reason that actually that last number. And they do this with a lot of musicals. They did it with Les Mis, they did it with Evita, they did it with this one, where they write a new song for the movie because the songs that were already in the musical cannot be nominated because they are not Best Original songs.
See,
they aren't written for the movie. So a lot of these musicals, they will write one new number for the movie so that it can get nominated.
You know what? And Sean learned something here on the episode. But yeah, the Best Picture nominees for that year was Chicago, Gangs of New York, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, The Hours, and The Pianist. And it's like, well, first off, Two Towers should have won that easily because Two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie of the three. So it's like, frankly, that should have won. And
the best movies of that year were Pirates of the Caribbean and Bad Boys 2, just saying. And The Rundown, that was 2003.
A little bit.
Obviously, these are not Oscar movies. I'm just.
They weren't my favorites of the year, but I did like all three of those movies. But yes, Chicago. Was it on HBO Max also? I'm trying to remember what it's on. Or was that? I actually had it on DVD. That's why I watched it. I don't think it's on any streaming services.
I'm looking right now. It is available to rent. It's not free anywhere.
Yeah. So
if you have Stars, it's on there. But
yeah, if you have Stars. In terms of this week's episode, I think only was Mordecai the only one that's available in streaming. Oh, that's sad. Oh no, Confessions was on HBO Max.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, that is episode 3 of the Weekend Crusaders. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a weird episode. It was a bunch of movies that we like Chicago, we like Fierce Creatures, and the rest were just like, it's okay. Next,
I'll give you a little hint that if from now on our individual picks might not always be, what we think are the greatest movies.
Exactly. I'm already telling you this right now. It's already in the books. There is going to be an episode coming up in the near future. My pick is going to be a stinker for me personally. It is going to be the biggest hate. Like, Brian's probably going to have to hold me back because I hate this movie with such a fiery passion, but we didn't pick it for the stinker because we both agreed that this movie is a stinker. And I was like, well, this movie needs to be shit on, so I'm gonna make it my pick. We did not mean to do that with Butterfly Effect. It just happened. And it got to the point where it's like, do we want to talk about Tad Hamilton? And I was like, no, you know what? We already watched Butterfly Effect. Let's just do that. Maybe we'll talk about Tad Hamilton next year if there's not another movie that comes out in our little brackets that works. But next week, we still have to decide on Revisited. That's the only one we haven't decided on.
None of us have seen The Stinker, but we're assuming and we're going to watch it.
I have not seen The Stinker. Brian's making me watch this garbage.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No. Okay. But we're just both assuming. I think you're going to be right.
Yeah, we're both assuming this movie's going to suck because we both went, oh, guys, that got to be our stinker. And we're like, I haven't seen it. Well, I haven't seen it either. Well, I guess that's what it is. Yeah, we both immediately went, ugh, as soon as we saw it. So that's our stinker. Our Revisited is a teenage, I would say a teenage classic in terms of teenagers, our age. It was everyone watched this movie at our age. And then the other one is a movie of that a lot of people probably haven't seen, with a great villain role, in my opinion. It's going to be that one or the teenage classic. We have not decided yet. Our feature film, honestly, I'm not a fan of the feature film personally, but it's the
featured film is a movie that actually was a great, pleasant surprise. Was better than, in this case, it was better than we thought it was going to be. Most people, but unfortunately gave way to progressively inferior sequels.
It started a trend that is still going to this day.
A trend that still is coming all the way until the last week.
We're 12 years. We're 12 years into this trend, and it has not stopped, and it won't go away anytime soon because people still want to see it. And that's going to be our feature film.
I don't know, not everybody, not me.
Brian's pick I've never seen, so that's going to be a first time watch.
And this is another one kind of like Fierce Creatures, in that it's not an obscure movie necessarily, but it's one that I don't think nearly enough people have seen.
I had heard of the movie, and I just never.
With a fun backstory, which I'll go into when we get there.
Yeah, and my personal pick is a movie that is very, very important to me and my personal life. It was a movie that could have failed miserably. It did not. It exceeded my expectations. It did everything pretty much right with this particular story, and it's a very, very, very important film to me, and it is my personal pick. So go ahead, guys, figure out what these movies are. And if you guys figured them out, put them in the comments below. But until next time, in case we don't see you, my name's Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. And in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.